Hello, everyone. Welcome to the first New Era talk hosted by CSAC. I'm Jin Li. I'm a scientist from UCLA Space Physics. This year, CSAC organized a STEAM essay contest for high school students on the topic of vision of human settlements into the solar system. We received many submissions. Of all the students, 3 of them are final winners. They are Tian, Zhang, Helen. So for this meeting, they're going to share with us the vision, their thoughts, and their accomplishment on human settlement into the solar system. I'd like to briefly introduce CSAC, the Chinese-American engineers and scientists of Southern California. CSAC was founded in 1962 and has been serving the community by technical symposiums, scholarships, business innovation programs, and STEAM workshops and contests. These programs have benefited numerous students and early career professionals. CSAC is also honored to have so many celebrities, as we show on these slides, as our past speakers and awardees. Now, the first speaker today is Zhang. Let's welcome Jenny.
Okay, so hi everyone, I'm Jenny Zhang, and then the title of my STEM essay was International Organization System for Settlements into the Solar System. So the innovation design that I proposed for long-term human settlements into the solar system basically focused on improvements of amending the relationships between ethnic and religious groups and also individual countries. So its ultimate goal is basically to avoid the interstellar conflicts where it might ultimately spread human destruction of their kinds and surrounding through the settlements outside of Earth, which is what we don't want, causing major problems that we may no longer be able to fix and defeating the essential purposes of space exploration and settlements. So basically my proposal focuses on the design for human settlements, but also implies that the pre-settlements events where the use of artificial intelligence is implemented to create a relatively safe environment and qualified living condition for the settlements before the mass migration begins. So in other words, it contains 2 parts: the restraint of potential international and interstellar tension, and the refraining of ethnic and religious persecution and conflicts. And there's a danger to human survival on Earth, and it poses as the outbreak of war, such as the start of a large-scale nuclear war, which many and especially more developed countries obtain the technological readiness of in these days. The most fundamental source of motive for war can be traced back to the beginning of human civilization, such as the spice of uniqueness of individuals and groups and fight for land or resources. And again, it can be observed within the conflicts between countries where millions of sacred human lives are being slaughtered to fulfill the demands of the government or the people, sometimes presented to the world under the pretense of some justified causes. So for example, we have European nations and United States acting at the act of imperialism under claims of white superiority and white man's burden. And we have Japanese invasion of China pre-World War II under false accusation of Japanese worker discrimination. We also have Russia's invasion of Ukraine, which was a more recent event, and etc. Therefore, in order for human civilization to reach type 1 civilization, human must learn how to use the resources without causing damages to the environment, which includes not only the immediate consequences brought by the usage of certain resources, like fossil fuels or coal as energy sources, which encourages climate change, but also to make sure that human relations, such as fighting for land or resources, like internal or external conflicts of countries, are avoided. So tracing back to ancient period, the trend of external conflicts over resources and land is often derived from the fact that through invading the land, the initiating countries of war hope to gain some benefits of the decision at the cost of sometimes hundreds of millions of soldiers and civilians' lives. And this has no doubt reflected the dark side of human nature. The world was almost always in a constant motion of fighting between countries. And one of the major issues is the disagreement over land and desire or protection of resources. And according to Will and Errol Durant, in their lessons of history, there has already been approximately 268 scattered years without war over the past 3,421 years. So for most people, 1 year without war is not only desirable, but considered highly desirable. Even to this day, it's the same. So therefore, when establishing colonies within the solar system, to avoid further conflicts and casualties on Earth, settlements or between a changing countries, government and world leaders' mindset must be achieved. So countries want to share the benefits produced by the colony peacefully and fairly, and acknowledging themselves as a part of the human species rather than one separate nationality that derived hatred between one human being and another, thus contributing to the survival of all of us. So for example, decades prior to the First World War, many nations showed significant nationalism, which created extremely high tension in Europe and caused a buildup to the nation's armies, promoting the increase of militarism, and eventually leading to the outbreak of war. And yet again, such implementation of nationalism leading to war can be observed at the beginning of World War II through the Nazi empire, which they had the determination for a nation of Aryan race, and the Japanese elites, initiation of the Asian War under the beliefs that they're superior to all. So it is acknowledged that in a realistic setting, human minds cannot be changed overnight, and not all can be convinced to cooperate according to the system with no traitorous plans. Though we should construct the international organization that is neutral among all, such as one functioning similar to the United Nations, should cooperate with every volunteer country, with the desire to gain and invest in interstellar resources or profits, to initiate a program of the transportation of settlers, supporting and providing countries with the restriction and guideline on their code of conduct to share to cooperate with the others on the product of the settlements into the solar system. And this figure gives a simplified example of how the system may function. So as labeled in the figure, a globe symbol piece represents basically the neutral international organization that serves as the policeman of the two sides, who can ensure a peaceful, symbiotic use and trading system of resources. And the puzzle pieces represents corresponding countries and settlements. So through the system, a healthy, peaceful, and economically beneficial cycle of the trade between nations on Earth and settlements into the solar system can be produced, where states receive fair benefits based on their investments, and settlements receive fair investment based on their contribution. So the system increasing the productivity and availability to necessary resources of both countries on Earth and settlements into the solar system thus prolongs human survival, as the system provides a better living condition and high chance of survival and flourishing for both region mentioned below. So in this particular example, country A invested $750 million in the research and development program for the interstellar colonies, while country B invested $250 million. So when combined, the total amount of investment provided for the settlement is $1,000 million, where country A contributed 75% and country B contributed 25% of the total contribution. And in regard to the investment of the countries, it is encouraged for countries to extract such economic resources from the respective states' military budgets. Therefore, not only encouraging the establishment of settlements in the solar system, but also promoting a much more peaceful world, where weapons utilized by against humankind would be obsolete. So on the side of the settlements, the information provided is that settlement A generates $1,050 million worth of profits that can be provided to the countries on Earth, while settlement B generates $1,950 million worth of profit to return to the Earth. So for profits being sent back to Earth, the settlement must understand that it is not required to send back everything they generate, but at an agreed and comfortable percentage that will result in a benefit of both groups. So for example, maybe 2.5% of each settlement's total profits, which is actually the approximation of the current global average percentage of military expenditure of each state. So therefore, the initial countries are still be able to benefit from the system, and the settlements are able to be funded by the states. But the colonies will be able to avoid economic depression when productivity and economic benefits are low, because the entire profits those settlements can provide adds up to 3,000 million, and settlement A will be providing 35% of the total profits, while settlement B provides 65% of the total profits. So the system designed to prevent war and catastrophe wherever human roam implements the usage of international organization that stays absolute neutral between all states, giving no country advantages or disadvantages of the trade or bias of any kind. So to avoid advantage to any state and or nation, it would be implied that each country would send an equal amount of representative to the organization to pursue such policy and agreement and regulate the system to best prevent conflicts between countries who try to take the advantage of the system and to protect those who are likely to be taken advantage of. So in the cases where countries or settlements violates the agreement of collaboration system, such as establishing discrete or illegal collaboration between the international organization collaboration system, which is a statement can be confined if more than 50% of the votes agrees with that such accusation, or if it directly violates the rules, then all participants of such activity are condemned to an increase in an investment or a contribution to the system by 1%. So for example, if given the previous investment or contribution is X% of their GDP, then the respective country or settlements will be required to raise the investment contribution by 1%. So in total, they would have X plus 1%. And such punishment for violators not only refrains the countries and settlements from illegal activities that are only beneficial for themselves and perhaps even negatively affect other members of the system, but can also contribute to benefits for all and would not deplete the system of economic or natural resources. So the goal of the system to achieve ultimate peace between countries to coexist without major physical conflicts requires a change in mindset. So in contrary to the idea of nationalism, where nationalism basically installs pride in specific individual countries that led many to believe in their superiority and the right of their success above others, the change in mindset should steer toward the sense of basically belonging for each individual in the category of the human species and as a living organism, and to fight for survival and benefits for not merely the individual persons or states, but as a human race and perhaps for all living beings not exclusively on Earth. And nevertheless, it is not in human nature to easily change everyone's mindset with such a dramatic turn over a short period. Therefore, the implementation of an international organism to police the relationship between countries and settlements is crucial in transitioning individual countries from previous mindsets, where countries concerned with each own benefits and survival to the new mindset where the human race should unite together and embrace each other to survive as a species. And ethno-religious conflicts poses as a serious and long-lasting problem in our world since the beginning of history, when humans first discovered God and goddesses, and such problem not only did not resolve through the course of history, but as humans developed to become more and more intellectually, physically, and technologically intelligent, the conflicts and In many cases, hatred between many ethnic and religious groups grew, triggering more and more disputes and wars of different scales in many regions of the world. And to avoid conflicts at an international scale level, the international organization system should cooperate different ethnic and religious groups to work together and resolve or avoid conflicts peacefully. And the plan for ethno-religious section of the system, which strives to keep peace within the and between the settlements and home planets, is demonstrated in the diagram on the next slide. So with the cooperation and regulation set with the international cooperation system, different religion and ethnic groups conflicts can also be diminished through the second part of the proposal. So in this figure, 5 distinct blocks are shown in the diagram, representing 5 representative settlements for the respective groups for demonstration. So settlement A contains a majority of the population that identified as ethnic group A, is the purpose block positioned at the top left of the diagram. It's right here. Settlement B, which contains the majority of the population that identifies themselves as religious group B, is the red religious groups A is the red block positioned at the top right of the diagram. And settlement C, which contains the majority of the population identifying themselves as religion group B, is the cyan block positioned at the middle left of the diagram, and so on. So the shape of the settlements shown in the diagram reflects that each settlement does not necessarily have to resemble the same borderline shape as the other, where each settlement have their own unique shape, similar to the states and countries on Earth. And the circles on diagram represents the population, where different color represent different groups. And as shown in the figure, although a specific settlement is defined as the homeland of its respective religion and ethnicity, it is not mandatory for all people who identify as such religious or ethnic groups to settle in the appointed region. So blocks generally have more than one color, although the appointed groups tend to be the majority of the population. And therefore, the system will provide the people who are migrating to the settlements in the solar system a digital live map of the settlements, making all related information largely available to the people in the solar system, regardless of residency. And to identify which settlement would be assigned to which religion or ethnic groups, it is essential for the international cooperative system to include the representative and or leaders of all religion and ethnic groups that desire a homeland outside of Earth. So through negotiation and compromises, the international cooperative system should come to a conclusion of which religion or ethnic group should claim which region of the solar system for settlements, and therefore encourage people to migrate toward that respective area to be with their people. Of course, that is to their own desire. So in addition, a significant amount of settlements should also be established for non-religious ethnic groups. Therefore, for those who do not identify themselves with any religious beliefs or ethnicity, are able to live together with little conflicts regarding religion or ethnic discriminations. And the proposal states that where 2 or more ethnic religious groups tend to infuse conflicts, the geographic location of the settlements of the groups are encouraged to be positioned with a considerable amount of distance apart. Therefore, less interaction will be made between the groups and then due to geographic reasons, leading to less conflicts. And therefore, the people with similar beliefs or the feel of belonging in a specific group are able to live together, causing minimal troubles and conflicts between settlements and perhaps within the solar system, which is what we want. And along with the system, it should also be implied that the system is being implemented. Scientists should ensure that the system are technologically, environmentally, geographically, and biologically ready for large-scale settlements and the technology and resources that can generate the basic elements of life. So water, food, clothes, shelter, that kind of stuff should be either implemented or brought to the target planet, where it should provide the best living condition and technologies can provide given the environmental and geological condition on the target planet. All in all, The important notion to remember when implementing international mass migration of human species is to access all resources peacefully between states and settlements with the mindset that uplifts the survival and benefits for all and not exclusively a certain nation or individual, which can be achieved with outside help and the additional encouragement of such system of the leading and more developed states and nations. So the possibility of human settlements is endless, and it is up to us to stand up and make the right decision, not only for our own survival, but for the survival of the human species and the living beings on Earth. So as many of us have experienced in the past few days, the effect of climate change and global warming are rapidly approaching our everyday life. And it is not a tale of some distance away anymore, for we have already seen people losing their lives to the heat as of right now, and the very destruction of the grasp of climate change. So the future of human beings, which is the consequences of our past actions, may come sooner than we think. So we must work together, and we must act now. Thank you. That is the end of my presentation.
Thank you. What a wonderful talk about the international organization system for our future settlement into space. And now Professor Jonathan Zhang will have a conversation with you. But before that, I will briefly introduce Professor Jonathan Zhang. Okay. Professor Jonathan Zhang is a principal scientist at JPL NASA. He's managing a team of more than 30 scientists and postdocs. Jonathan Zhang has many publications in remote sensing, climate change, climate sciences, astrophysics, and artificial intelligence. He has been twice awarded the NASA Exceptional Achievement Medals for his leadership innovation in scientific research and NASA satellite observations. He has received the 2019 Edward Stone Award and the a third NASA Exceptional Scientific Achievement Medal for outstanding scientific achievements and services to NASA missions. Now, I'll welcome Jonathan Zhang to have a conversation with our student.
Okay, thank you very much, and for the introduction. And I was inspired actually by Jenny's talk. I actually myself learned something, and from your talk. Now, and as I recall, this topic is for human species migrate into the solar system. You think about that, and think about 1 million or 2 million years ago, and so over the course of 1 million years, our distant ancestors become a multi-continent species by going forth from the plains of East Africa to populate the rest of the world, to become multi-continent species to ensure our survival and our development until today. Now, and in the next 100 years, it's very likely we are going to move towards the solar system to occupy the moon, the Mars, maybe the moons of Jupiter and Saturn. Why? Because we are living on a tiny planet, tiny rock with limited resources. Sooner or later, for our own survival, we need to go out. Now, but think about that, there's a problem, potential problem, because you look at today, our Earth, our continent, our species is divided by different countries and different groups and different religions. So if we migrate, let's say we build a city on Mars, we build a base on the moon, and potential issue is, are we going to still divide by the groups, by the countries, or by the religions, and how to deal with that? Now, from your talk, and I think it's very interesting, you offered a suggestion and to form an international organizations. So, and I have a question here, and could you summarize your key ideas in simple words of how this organization could solve the potential issues from different ethnic and religious groups and as well as different countries to effectively avoid conflicts through the settlement of the solar system?
Mm-hmm. So essentially, my proposal was that by basically the system first deals with kind of the political side, where we want the countries on Earth and on the settlements to work together instead of working for themselves or against each other. And that can basically shift people's mindset over time to where we are in this together. And then the second part was ethno-religion. I know that it seems like I've kind of like drawn borders for each, so it seems like it resembles the country, but it is actually to avoid kind of the conflicts on a personal level, because there are people who strongly believes in kind of this hatred on and against another nation or religion. So by doing that, we can kind of encourage people to live with their kind where they are most comfortable with, and therefore maybe can drive a stronger desire for their survival and like working together to receive the most benefits.
I see. Okay, so you mentioned to change the mindset of the people. I think this is a great challenge to the human survival, to ourselves, because the mindset is not that easy to change. And you also mentioned during your talk, you say reinforce the law, okay, including the punishment if you not obey the law, things like that. So is that going to be a space police, or those police carry weapons and things like that?
I think if it comes to the necessity that we need police to regulate, then for sure. But if not, and if like it is okay to be implemented peacefully, that would be most recommended, because then people can be like, oh, it is a safe space. Then maybe they will be more encouraged to participate in a positive attitude rather than more of a, oh no, I'm going to be punished attitude.
I see. Okay, so at least your talk is inspiring and to encourage people to think. All right, so let's move forward to the second student. And I know besides the conflict of different groups, another difficulty is the food, because we want to survive. Human is not machine, we need to eat, okay? And if we migrate into the solar system, how to solve the food problem. So let's go to the second student. Thank you, bye-bye.
Yeah, and the second speaker, wait a moment, I'm stop spotlight. Okay. The second speaker is Helen Liu, and she's going to share with us the future of space cultivation, InfiniPod. Please tell us what is InfiniPod.
All right, I'm gonna share screen. All right, so my name is, oh, can you see the screen?
Not yet.
Okay. Give me a second. All right, can you see it now?
I think it's coming. And it says double click to, okay, yes, now we can see it.
Okay. All right, can you guys see full screen?
Yes.
Okay. All right, so my name is Helen Liu, and I'm going to be presenting the future of space cultivation, InfiniPod. So here's a quick overview of all of the things I'll be talking about. All right, so let's start off with the topic. So the topic of the essay is innovative design for long-term human settlements into the solar system. So how does this product, InfiniPod, apply to this topic? InfiniPod is a product created to harvest crops with minimal time, space, resources, and care. This meets the long-term need of having fresh vegetables for populations on different planets. InfiniPod is a blueprint to sustainable agriculture for our future human settlements into the solar system. Now, you might be asking, what is InfiniPod? And this is just going to be a quick introduction. So InfiniPod is an aeroponic system that uses a closed water loop, which also reduces water usage by 98% and fertilizer usage by 60%, all while maximizing crop yields. Aeroponics is soil-free, which means it minimizes the resources and mass of this operation. Nutrient-enriched water is misted onto plant roots to make the best use of space. The design is compact and space efficient, but also provides the option for the growth area to be visible to the crew. The shelves can expand by being pulled down, which provides easy access to the plants for harvesting, observation, and data collection. And you can see from the video on the left. So this solution doesn't just benefit space travel to the solar system and beyond, but also the future of agriculture, making consolidated designs while also heightening crop growth rates and nutritional value is widely beneficial to all of society and makes food increasingly sustainable for the years to come. The compact design offers space agriculture that is simplistic and effortless to sustain. All right, so now that everyone has a basic idea of what InfiniPod is, we'll move on to the development process. We'll cover deciding which growth method to use, which crop to plant, and thinking about the overall scale of this project. All right, so let's first understand why aeroponics was chosen out of the 3 soil-free plantation methods. So there are 3: aeroponics, aquaponics, and hydroponics. It was decided using the process of elimination. Aquaponics require fish wastes to provide nutrients for the roots, which already sounds very high maintenance because you have fish. So we don't really want fish poop flowing everywhere. So that was rolled out. Hydroponics is great, but it requires an abundant amount of water, but we also want minimal resources going into the operation. So the best option is aeroponics because it saves water up to 98%. All right, lettuce. Crops such as lettuce, which usually takes 8 weeks to fully grow, can be harvested in less than 6 weeks in a soil-free environment. Plants grown through aeroponics have shown to take up more minerals and vitamins, making the plants healthier and more nutritious. And that is how the main crop was decided on, butterhead lettuce. And lettuce is the ultimate candidate since it's easiest, fastest growing crop. And it was also grown in the International Space Station before using the vegetable production system, which is also known as veggie. And you can see in these photos that they've successfully planted lettuce. And also because research conducted by NASA shows that astronauts who are on missions miss the texture of fresh vegetables the most. Let's be honest, who wants to eat dried, textureless food for the rest of their lives on another planet? Not me. So that's why lettuce was chosen, because it's extra crispy. All right, project scale. Research was also conducted to see how many vegetables a crew of 6 needs a day. And that was used to determine the size of the InfiniPod, which is 10 shelves for each InfiniPod, 4 lettuce pods per shelf, which produces 3+ cups of lettuce per day for each of the crew. And the crew is 4 to 6 people. As for the future of InfiniPod for human settlements in space and large-scale farming, there is a long way to go, but the picture on the right is an idea of what it might look like if we were to support large populations on planets. All right, and here are some key components to InfiniPod. First one is a spray nozzle for water absorption. So in space, it's harder for plants to absorb water through their roots. Water has to be delivered in the form of mist for the plants to take in the nutritious liquids. So InfiniPod are supplied with 50 micron spray nozzles that provide fine mist with the help of an 80 PSI centrifugal pump. And then filtration is also very important for InfiniPod. The reverse osmosis filter provides InfiniPod with clean water that is recycled through the waste streams. This filter is critical to the cycling of water throughout the whole irrigation system, since the 50 micron spray nozzle produces the finest mist. The requirement for a minimal amount of debris in the water is also very high. If large waste particles are caught in the nozzle, this will result in clogs and failure to irrigate the roots properly, which is why this filtration system is so necessary. The water is propelled through the reverse osmosis membrane, sediment filter to filter out the debris, carbon filter for disinfection purposes, and a post-activated carbon filter, which is also known as PAC, that removes the majority of contaminants from the water supply. The reverse osmosis filter offers InfiniPod the capacity to reprocess nutrients from waste streams. Hence, that's why it saves 98% water. And then on top of the product InfiniPod, a computerized control interface was also created. An application was devised for data collection and system control. Although the pods are almost comprehensively self-operating, users have the utmost control over the environment and their crops. The app allows you to control almost every aspect of your pod, and it also displays all of the data you need. All right, so let's get into some design details. And here are some of the 3D models I've made. So each pod will be mounted on a shelf, shown right here, that's a shelf. And there are 4 pods to a shelf, 10 shelves for each InfiniPod. LED lights provide light and heat for the plants. Temperature sensors are present to monitor the environment. Nutrient and water will be misted into the shelves for plant roots in sponges or rock wool cubes to absorb. Water will be changed periodically through the drainage pipe right here. In the back of the shelf, the main pump runs out from the water tank and into the individual shelves. Due to the absence of strong gravity, a drainage pump is present and it sucks all the excess mist out of the shelves and back into the water tank to reprocess nutrients from the waste streams. Please note that there will be a pressure relief valve in the tank, so the air sucked in from the pump will not cause the water tank to explode. Any debris or pollution in the water from the drainage pump is filtered off through the reverse osmosis filter, like we talked about before. And within the water tank, sensors collect data and notify users through the app for maintenance, inspection, or occasional refilling of nutrients and water. All right, so we talked a bit about the UI, and we're going to talk about it a little more. So here is the automated control interface, also known as an APP. And although the system is fully autonomous, requiring minimal care or interactions, the app lets you have maximum control of the environment in which the lettuce grows in. Controls and displays include temperature, LED lights, fluid levels, spray control, nutrient and water levels, and liquid refills. The interactive platform allows users to share their planting experience and problems. Then artificial intelligence will accumulate the data from around the world or universe to find better ways to grow more nutritious plants in space or on other planets. All right. I want to thank CSAC for this amazing opportunity to share this project with so many people. And speaking here today is a huge validation, not only for me, but also this project. And I would like to thank Dr. Zhang, my parents, and other people for guiding me and supporting me throughout projects. And I hope this project can inspire everyone here today to innovate and create for our future settlements in space. Thank you.
Thanks, Helen. And you really inspired me at least. And it's time for conversation between Jonathan and you.
Right. Okay. So, and I
Gigi,
think
you probably want to unping her first.
Okay.
Because she's
Okay.
pinging right now.
Okay. So, and probably people already know there's more than 1 million people already signed up as a volunteers to go to the Mars as a first immigrant. Okay. So I recently attended some meetings among these volunteers. One of the issue is the food. Okay. Say And sometime later, I volunteer go to Mars. Okay, one-way ticket. Okay, the things I'm going to miss is, say if I want to taste Peking duck, probably it's not going to be available, right? For example, salad. Okay, maybe space cultivation. All right. So your talk is interesting. It's related to the subject of the future immigrant and into the solar system. So think about 100 years later. Okay, in the future of space food. Okay, and could you summarize your thought on how your soil-free cultivation system could be applied for human settlement to the moon, to the Mars, to the solar system, and beyond?
So InfiniPod currently provides for 6 crew members. And when we're talking about human settlements, we're talking about large populations. So putting in consideration for costs in terms of transportation, the large-scale farms will likely utilize vertical plastic PVC pipes to create aeroponic and vertical farms. So that's like a combination of 2 techniques. And it was presented earlier in my slides. They're vertical plastic pipes, and they're way easier to transport than, let's say, 10 InfiniPods. And this reduces the cost of supply transportation compared to like horizontal farms. And we don't need to deploy individual boxes like an InfiniPod. Instead, we should like invest in PVC vertical farms for large scale cultivation in the future.
I see, beautiful. And looks like your plan can provide some solutions for space cultivations. And so one more challenge question, okay? And you may or may not answer. How about, I'm not vegetarian. Say I miss some chicken, and as a settlement to the moon base. So do we still rely on the cargo ship from the Earth to provide that, or any solutions in the future?
That's a hard question, but if we're talking about
right.
meat, to import meat, we could either transport them from Earth, but that's like a very high cost in terms of transportation.
That's right, yeah.
Or, oh my God, I should make a new thing where they raise like chickens instead of lettuce. That would be good.
Okay, I'm looking forward to that. All right. Okay, Jingxing, okay, let's move to the next.
Okay, wait a moment. Let's provide. Okay, our third speaker is Mike Tian from Alana Roosevelt High School. And Mike, can you share your screen?
Yeah, okay, I'm gonna share my screen. Does everyone see it?
Yes, I can see it.
Okay, so here's my presentation on my essay. It's called Blueprint for Space Colonization. So just like one day, I would suppose, my dad was scrolling through WeChat and his countless WeChat groups and saw this post by CSAC, like the one on the left over here, about a Zoom meeting. And this Zoom meeting, my dad was pretty excited about it and showed me to it. And I was like, ooh, it looks pretty cool. Features like space cities. And I really wanted to watch it. So I was really excited, and watching the Zoom lecture, it got me really interested. And when the essay was announced at the end, I was immediately hooked up. I'm just generally very interested in science fiction, and at the very least, if I'm able to write about science or science in general, I would immediately jump at that chance. And so began my approximately 2-week adventure of researching, writing, revising, and searching. The way I saw it at the start of the essay, most books were laid out in somewhat chronological order. The essay was laid out like over the span of 100 years, so I would also probably read in chronological order. This essay was a daunting task, 10 to 15 pages of imagination and research. I had never done a project such like that. And alas, my brain was like, maybe you can do this, but I just find this idea. Mike, you have a month to finish this. you can obviously do it. I believe in you. And so, like a lot of fantasy and adventure and science fiction books, I start with a preface, background knowledge, and a rarer quote by like a famous person. The quote at the start of my essay was related to JFK, his speech to go to the moon. JFK at Rice University when he made this quote. The background knowledge describes modern history up until this point, and it also gives a bit of explanation of current disasters on Earth, like resource exploitation and climate change. For me, these descriptions served as a warning as why we should be careful when colonizing foreign objects so different from Earth, because we could make the same mistakes as we did on Earth. The first 2 pages were the easiest to write, perhaps because I hadn't pigeonholed myself yet. It was also easy to write because I really needed a break from school. AP tests were coming soon, and 3 of these tests at that. European history was all just memorizing facts, so being able to think creatively and Google stuff without aim was quite amazing. AP Euro had us all stuck in the past learning about previous history, but why not look into the future? This essay was obviously the perfect opportunity to do so. I was never really quite like a good artist or musician, but writing I felt I was able to better express myself. So yeah, all the more reason why for me to do this essay. Recent news articles about NASA's return to the moon, like with the NASA's Artemis project, and some knowledge of like early modern history give me better narrative direction. Like my essay starts off like with humanity's return to the moon as NASA plans with Artemis, and thus with a bit of dramatic flavor. 3, 2, 1, blast off. The introduction was finished, and the development essay somewhat started. A scientist, when researching, collects all data necessary to the experiment. I hope that when I wrote this essay, I was emulating this. After all, I wanted to be a researcher, specifically a researcher hematologist. So I thought to myself, what challenges would these astronauts face the moment they touch down? Short-term and long-term problems? I start off more simply with how astronauts would simply survive on the unforgiving lunar surface. Then, once these details were out of the way, I would try to imagine how a self-sustaining population so far from Earth would manage itself. It's not very plausible to imagine that an Earth-based government would know best in how to manage the Moon or Mars. This want for complexity and detail would ultimately decide how this whole essay would be written, other than the content restrictions on how much pages I could write. The lunar and Martian surfaces are coated in very sharp dust that damages all sorts of equipment. Food cannot be expected to be regularly delivered to these astronauts and thus must be grown on site. For example, the Mars launch window it only arrives every 2 years, so you really can't just deliver enough food for these 2 years. It's just regular. There's a lot of problems, so you need to be self-sustaining. Water and oxygen must be recycled with available technologies, and they have to be recycled and harvested from the ice caps or the dust itself. And the habitats must be small so they can be carried on rockets, but sturdy, as mentioned with the harsh lunar and Martian dusts. The only reliable energy sources are fusion, or fission, or solar power, depending on how big the population is on these extraterrestrial objects. There's also the challenges of living in environments with lower gravity than Earth. All these challenges and more must be solved for human habitation or just for surviving on there. My essay attempts to visualize these challenges in both words and images. I'm only a high school student, so I had to look up a lot of possible solutions. But I referenced the sources when possible, and I just hope that when I wrote this essay, it would be both interesting, hopefully complete, and just very, very, very complex. Like like any colonization efforts, once the initial platforms for surviving were set, the time for thriving would also arrive soon. Getting at the idea of the scale of such extraterrestrial colonies helped me to better imagine how the future of such colonies would happen. The extraction of resources, the development of infrastructure, and and the economy were particularly important for me to write down. Because without this framework, no lunar or Martian colony could possibly be self-sustaining or much less profitable or worthwhile. History, specifically the decolonization of Africa and Asia, also guide me to look at certain social political situations that might arise on the moon and Mars once self-sufficiency is reached and independence wanted by the colonists, like in America in the American Revolution. So once the time is right, the moon and Mars should become independent, moving towards ideals of liberty, equality, fraternity, and progress, because without that, humanity wouldn't be able to survive. Space colonization has a few goals, at least in my mind. First, it serves as a life goal for mankind, such be it if an asteroid struck the Earth, like the ones that killed the dinosaurs, or some other calamity happened there where there would be other humans to propagate the human race on the moon and Mars, and hopefully beyond the solar system. Second, it serves as a testing ground for new materials and new technology. And third, colonization allows us to access un, unthinkable amounts of minerals and resources like on Earth. With this space for developing technology and gathering all the resources, we could potentially make space elevators as depicted in the left image. But warnings abound, as described at the start of my essay, with like the climate change and resource exploitation issues. And as such, we don't want to fall into the trap of short-term, long-term benefits, and generally just have to be careful about how we use our resources. Nonetheless, I had hope that humanity would keep on developing, as described in my essay, with the lunar 3D printer farms, space elevators, new types of genetically modified organisms, new types of AI, and etc. It would eventually reach a peak to the point that the moon and Mars will become the physical embodiment of human ingenuity and progress with good societal structures to back it all up. Because what's the point of wealth if only a few people can use it? By this point of my essay, I was reaching the end of the century. The moon and Mars are fully colonized, invaluable to humanity thanks to the rare earth mineral it provides for humanity's industries, as shown here, and also with the inventions made on these extraterrestrial environments. They serve as humanity's next step into the vastness of space. Exploration continues of the asteroid belt and the moons of Jupiter and Saturn, like the moon of Europa on the right over here. But continued human habitation on Europa and other extraterrestrial objects beyond Mars is questionable because of its dubious environment. Resources might be the only thing worthwhile on these moons and asteroids. Research will continue into potential interstellar travel, as humanity's survival must not be tied to a planet, a solar system, or even like a group of solar systems. With this exponential technological growth, with interstellar travel might not be that far as previously imagined, and because like some technologies just develop faster, and like humanity before the invention of flight thought that it would take another 1,000 or 100,000 years to develop flight, but only a few years later the Wright brothers took off. So interstellar travel, even though it seems pretty complicated, might not be that far off. And with this, science, the arts, etc., all flourish to make humanity a truly great species, both developed culturally and technologically. After 2 weeks of tiring but fun writing, I was finished with this essay. I didn't really have high hopes for winning first place, but at the very least, I knew I tried my best with all this research and writing. I had even used an APA citation generator, like the APA citations are shown here on the left. And as we were taught in our ELA class, so my essay looked a tad bit more formal with all the references I used cited. Waiting 2 weeks for a contest to be over and another month or so for the contest results was quite nerve-wracking. And that time we had finished up our AP tests and summer was coming. And on that fateful day, I received an email that had said that I had won. Funny enough, the original email like had a different title. It had Helen's instead. It was kind of funny, but that mix-up was cleared up. Overall, this essay was quite the educational and exciting experience. And yeah, with this, my presentation is done. I also want to give acknowledgments to my dad and mom for supporting me for this whole essay writing. It was just very tiring, and they supported me all through it. And I also want to give thanks to Helen and Jenny for working with me and each other together to build this introduction video that was seen at the start. We all worked together. That was pretty difficult, but it was done. And then lastly, I also want to give thanks to CSAC for giving all three of us and more students for even this simple opportunity to write this essay and giving out these prizes and encouraging, youth interest in science. So I'm just very thankful to CSAC for that as well. So with that, I am finished.
Thank you, Mike, for sharing with us your blueprint for space colonization and also for sharing your story with CSAC. And now it's time for conversation with Jonathan Zhang.
All right. Okay. Thank you very much. And the Zoom seminar you mentioned actually is given by me. And you mentioned you were inspired, but I tell you what. And when I listen to your seminar, and now I'm also inspired by your seminar because and you and me are different generations. And so the fact you talk about those space travel, space colonization, you actually inspire me. And let me tell you a true story of mine. About 120 years ago, or maybe almost exact 120 years ago, my grandfather was a kid. Primary school. And his family is living near a train station. And one day, my grandfather's father told my grandfather, hey, kid, you see what this train is running around? Those trains are carry people to different cities in this country within a few days. And then he taught my grandfather something astonishing. He says, when you grown up, perhaps there's going to be an airplane station. Okay, so you can take the airplane to any city around the world, not only in this country, in a day. So that was very inspiring. So my grandfather actually told this a story to my father, and my father grew up, become electrical engineers, actually to make that happen. Nowadays, we have an airplane travel all over the world, of course. So when I think about this, and you are about the same age of my daughter. Okay, even younger. So I'm going to tell you in the future, okay, when you're grown up, okay, maybe your children's grown up, that's going to be space stations. Okay, if you go to that space stations, you can take the rockets, take the space and craft, and to travel any worlds, any planets in the solar system. Within about 100 years until that could be true. Okay, so let's go back to the questions. Now, for space colonization, okay, and development effort. So what is your ideas? Could you summarize your ideas about the key steps humans should take for venturing to the moon, the Mars, the Jupiter's moon, and eventually to the stars?
I would say that some of the key steps that humans must undertake for any venture into space is firstly developing the sciences necessary for humans. So humans then should create or install infrastructure on these extraterrestrial objects for more permanent habitation, and they should also continually develop technologies that allow humans to travel further and faster, and maybe eventually reach faster than light travel. Like as you said, like technology just goes very quickly, it just develops quickly. Some of these potential technologies that would be utilized on these objects would include like the technologies mentioned by Helen of growing food in space with the growing the plants in the water, and then there's also like Jenny's idea with international organization system. These technologies and more would contribute to creating would contribute to developing humans and preparing them for interstellar travel, make it just organized, faster, and more peaceful, and not hungry like with Helen's lettuce. Yeah.
All right. I heard the first key step is continue to development and advancement of science and technology to make that possible, right? And there could be many things like international organization and full things like that. So it looks like complicated. So I'm going to ask you one challenge questions, okay, to see if you can answer it. Who makes the decision if that's going to happen or not?
Oh, like for that, I would think like some kind of international consortium, somewhat akin to like the United Nations. Like they decide, like they vote together on deciding on what certain decisions should be taken. Like that's what I would think would be deciding.
So this is not the answer. This is a wish list. Okay, wishful list. Okay, so the answer is who makes decision? You make decision. And your children makes the decision because the future depends on your guys, and future of humanity depends on our children and children's children. That's the answer. Thank you very much for inspiration and very inspired and seminars. Okay, thank you. Yeah.
Thank you, Dr. Zhang and CSAC for this wonderful opportunity.
Sure. Yeah. All right, Jingxing.
Okay. Yeah, the student speakers today covers the most important fields in human settlement into space. Jenny gave us her vision of the political system of space colonization, and Helen represented a scientist who solves the specific problems. And just now, Mike provided us his strategy of space colonization, step by step. And I'm actually inspired by each of the speakers. And Jonathan, I think you may also have a conclusion of all the speeches today. So what do you think about the...
Yes, and I think those students are ranged between 15 years old and 17 years old, I think, to the most. So those are young people. As I said, and our futures, not only you and me's futures, and our humanity, our humanity's futures, our human civilization's futures actually depends on you. And we all remember we are living on the Earth, right? But from space point of view, and Jenny mentioned he loves astronomy. From astronomy point of view, we are living on a tiny, tiny rock with limited resources. So to the survival of our future generations and of human species, we need to move out from this tiny rock to gradually migrate into the solar system, and eventually we will travel to the stars. And this is not easy. This is a many complicated issues, but after listening to this seminar, I feel more positive because our kids is already inspired by the ideas. They already think about this. Okay, how to solve, for example, conflicts, how to solve the food, and what's the key steps, and to do that. So, as I said, the future depends on these kids, and future depends on your children, the kids' children, and I feel more safe and more hope and more positive about our futures. And I think I encourage all the students, and when you go to college, you continue to work on that. Thank you very much. Yeah.
Thank you, Jonathan. And I'm greatly impressed about all the speeches today. And also, I love the conclusion by Jonathan Zhang, who make the decision, who will lead the space colonization, space exploration. It is you, each of you, who is attending the meeting today, each of the students, each of the speakers. And I'd like to announce this is the first new era talk of CSAC, and it is okay. I see someone raised his hand. Okay, I'll give you an opportunity to speak. This meeting is from the STEAM essay contest, and CSAC will have STEAM essay contest every year. We will announce the topic of the contest at the beginning of next year, I encourage the students here to participate in the program. And I see someone raise their hand, and wait a moment. Okay, who raised his hand? And okay, no. Okay, I thought someone wanted to speak, but he put off his hand. Okay, that marks the end of the meeting today. And thank you for every speaker. Thank you, Jonathan, and thank you for every attendees today. Thank you.
Okay,
And
thank you, Jingjing.
yeah, we look forward to see you on our future CSAC events. Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah. Thank you. Bye-bye now.